December 31st, 1944. 12:44 p.m., 22,000 feet above the North Sea, 30 miles northwest of Hamburg. Two B-17 flying fortresses are fused together mid-air, locked in a death spiral no pilot has ever survived. 9 lives has embedded itself through the belly of the little skipper tail, jutting upward nose crushed into aluminum ribs, 8 engines screaming in dissonant fury. Both aircraft on fire. Inside the crushed ball turret, Staff Sergeant Joe Russo feels the metal sphere collapsing around him. The hatch won't open, the manual crank won't turn. Cold wind tears through ruptured aluminum. Above him, ammunition explodes in chains, each detonation shaking both bombers closer to disintegration. In the cockpit, Second Lieutenant Glenn Rojohn and co-pilot William Leake grip controls that barely respond. Every instrument screams failure. Hydraulics dead, airspeed bleeding, altitude dropping 800 feet per minute. Below them, freezing Atlantic. Around them, German flak still hunting. Behind them, 16 crew members calculating the same nightmare, 2 bombers weighing 30 tons each fused together on fire falling. No training prepared them for this. No manual covers flying 2 aircraft welded by collision. No survival protocol exists because no one has ever lived through it. Every second airborne defies physics. Every breath borrows time from death. Inside, 17 men calculate the same impossible equation. How do you survive when 2 bombers become 1 falling coffin? Rojohn has 60 seconds to decide bail out and abandon his trapped gunner, or attempt to fly the unflyable and save whoever can be saved. What happens when the only thing standing between certain death and impossible survival is 2 pilots who refuse to let go? The mission briefing came at 0600 hours. Target Hamburg oil refineries, the Reich's lifeline. Every barrel refined here keeps Panzer divisions rolling Luftwaffe fighters airborne the war alive. Intelligence estimates are brutal. 64 heavy flak batteries ring the harbor. BF-109s and FW-190s wait at Bremen and Oldenburg. Worse Me-262 jets that outrun any escort fighter the Allies can field. The 1st Bomb Division assembles over England in pre-dawn darkness. 400 B-17s, 24,000 pounds of high explosives per aircraft. The crews know the mathematics: 10% losses is acceptable. 15% is catastrophic. 20% means someone miscalculated badly. By December 1944, every man flying knows someone who didn't come back. The little skipper takes position in the high squadron port side. Second Lieutenant Glenn Rojohn commands 22 years old, 23 missions survived. His co-pilot, Second Lieutenant William Leake, reads tension through instrument checks and quick glances. Beneath them, Staff Sergeant Joe Russo settles into the ball turret, a plexiglass sphere bolted to the bomber's exposed belly. Coldest position, most cramped, most vulnerable. Exit requires manually cranking the turret to align the hatch, then pulling yourself up through a space barely wide enough for shoulders. In combat, with the aircraft maneuvering violently, that hatch becomes a coffin lid. Every ball turret gunner knows this. Every ball turret gunner climbs in anyway. Behind the little skipper flies 9 lives: Berlin survivor, Stuttgart survivor, Channel Fire survivor, 9 black cats painted on the nose. The crew believes their bomber is charmed, blessed, untouchable. They're wrong. The formation crosses the North Sea in defensive boxes so tight you could walk wingtip to wingtip. Mutual protection. Interlocking fire. Every pilot holds position with surgical precision because breaking formation means dying alone. Then Hamburg opens fire. The sky transforms. Black flak bursts bloom at 12:38 p.m., hundreds of them erupting like a forest of iron trees. Each explosion throws shrapnel that can sever a wing puncture, a fuel tank, shred a man into red mist. Fools rush in, takes a direct hit. The B-17 becomes an orange fireball. 6 parachutes blossom. 7 men die before they can scream. 90 seconds later, Cramps Tramps loses its tail section. The bomber inverts and spins a 30-ton coffin tumbling toward Earth. The formation shatters. Aircraft scatter to avoid the kill zone. The defensive box collapses. Radios explode with panic. We're hit, bail out, number 3's on fire. But Rojohn holds formation, muscle memory crushing instinct. Formation means survival. Panic means death. They fly straight through hell's front door. Bomb bay doors open at 12:41. High explosives fall. The refineries below erupt, secondary explosions blooming as fuel storage tanks ignite. Mission complete. Now comes the part where most crews die. The formation turns northwest toward England. 300 miles of enemy territory. 300 miles of flak batteries, 300 miles where wounded bombers become easy kills. The Me-262s arrive like raptors. Twin-engine jets screaming through the formation at 550 miles per hour. 4 30mm cannons that can saw a B-17 in half. They dive from altitude faster than human reflexes can track. Cannon shells hammer through aluminum. Engines explode. Wings fold like paper. Then the conventional fighters join Bf-109's FW-190s, exploiting every gap, every wounded bomber struggling to keep pace. The radio becomes a symphony of death. Call signs that were voices seconds ago turn to static. Rojohn watches it happen to 9 lives. A Bf-109 attacks head-on the most lethal angle, minimal defensive fire. Cannon shells obliterate the cockpit. Glass and blood spray across instruments. Both pilots die instantly. Their hands release the yoke. 9 lives begins climbing, uncontrolled. No one at the controls. The B-17's natural stability pushes the nose upward. Airspeed bleeds. The bomber stalls toward the sky, rising through the exact airspace where the little skipper is descending. Rojohn sees it coming. Physics and geometry converging. He shoves the yoke forward, diving to gain separation. Not enough time. Not enough altitude. Not enough sky between them. The tale of 9 lives punches through the little skipper's belly like a fist through a windshield. Impact. Metal screams. Rivets explode like gunfire. The entire airframe convulses as 9 lives embeds itself deep into the fuselage, a parasite fused to its host. In the ball turret, Russo feels the sphere compress. The manual crank jams. The hatch warps and seals. Metal grinding against metal. The space shrinking. Trapped. Completely trapped. Above him, both bombers lock together. 9 lives rides, partially inverted its fuselage, driven through the little skipper's guts. 16 engines total. 2 crews suddenly sharing one twisted metal coffin. One impossible mass tumbling toward the freezing North Sea. And in the cockpit, Rojohn has seconds, not minutes, seconds to decide whether attempting to fly this abomination will save lives or just kill everyone slower. Behind them, ammunition from both aircraft starts cooking off a countdown neither pilot can see, but both can hear, getting faster. The collision happens in silence. Then the world explodes into chaos. Metal shrieks. Rivets shoot through the fuselage like bullets. Structural beams buckle. The impact throws Rojohn forward against his harness, hard enough to crack ribs. Beside him, Leak's head slams into the instrument panel. Blood streams from his forehead. "Stay with me," Rojohn shouts. Leak's eyes focus. "I'm here." The yoke fights back heavy wrong alive with resistance. Every control input generates responses that make no aerodynamic sense. The aircraft wants to roll left, then right, then nose down into a dive that will kill them in seconds. Rojohn pulls back. Nothing happens. He pulls harder. The nose rises a fraction, then drops again. They're falling. Not flying, falling with style. Behind them, the fuselage tears open wider. Wind roars through the gap where 9 lives embedded itself. Loose equipment tumbles through the cabin. Charts, ammunition belts. A fire extinguisher becomes a missile smashing through the radio operator's station. In the ball turret, Russo tries the manual crank again, jammed solid. He braces his feet against the turret frame and pulls with both hands. The mechanism doesn't budge. The sphere is compressing slowly but measurably. He can feel the walls closing in. Rojohn. His voice cracks over the intercom. Turret's jammed, I can't get out. Working on it, stay calm. But there's nothing calm about this. The combined mass of both bombers is descending at 900 feet per minute. They've lost 2,000 feet since impact. At this rate, they have 3 minutes before hitting the ocean. 3 minutes to figure out how to fly something that shouldn't exist. Fire erupts from 9 lives. Fuel from ruptured tanks ignites along the fuselage. Flames spread across aluminum skin, consuming fabric control surfaces, melting electrical wiring. Black smoke pours into the cockpit. Rojohn can barely see the instruments. Fire in the waist section. The tail gunner's voice high, terrified. It's spreading fast. Then the ammunition starts cooking off. 50 caliber rounds detonate in their belts, pop, 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 pop like firecrackers. At first, then faster, building to a continuous roar. Tracer rounds arc through the sky. Some punch through the fuselage from inside, some ricochet off metal and tumble away, trailing smoke. Each explosion shakes both aircraft. Each explosion brings them closer to structural failure. We're breaking apart, Leak shouts over the noise. Rojohn can feel it through the yoke. The aircraft is flexing in ways aircraft shouldn't flex. The point where 9 lives embedded itself is acting like a hinge. The 2 bombers are trying to separate, pulled apart by aerodynamic forces neither was designed to withstand. If they separate midair, both will tumble uncontrollably. Everyone dies. Navigator Harris crawls forward from his station, hand over hand, fighting the wind. His charts are gone. His instruments are destroyed, but he can see through the broken windows. We're over water, still over the North Sea. How far to land? Rojohn demands. 30 miles, maybe less. 30 miles. At their current rate of descent, they'll hit water in 2 minutes. They need altitude. They need power. They need a miracle. Rojohn scans the engine instruments. 4 engines on the Little Skipper, 2 still running, 1 on fire, 1 dead. 4 engines on 9 lives, below them status unknown, probably all failed. He adjusts throttles on engines 1 and 2, adds power carefully. Too much and the asymmetric thrust will roll them inverted. The engines respond, RPM increasing, thrust building. The rate of descent slows, 900 feet per minute, 800, 700. It's working. Leak's voice carries desperate hope, but the fire is spreading faster. Flames reach the port wing fuel tank. If that ignites, the explosion will blow both aircraft into fragments. Waist gunner Woodall reaches the ball turret. He grabs the external crank, the emergency backup for when the internal mechanism fails. He cranks hard. Nothing. The gears are stripped or jammed or both. Russo, I'm trying. Hurry. Russo's voice is smaller now. The turret is definitely compressing. His knees are pressed against his chest. His head tilted at an angle that's becoming painful. Woodall finds a pry bar in the emergency kit. He wedges it into the turret hatch and pushes with everything he has. The metal bends slightly, then springs back. The collision warped the entire frame. The hatch is sealed as effectively as if it were welded shut. In the cockpit, a new problem emerges. The control cables are failing. Rojohn feels them going one by one, parting under stress they were never designed to handle. First, the rudder goes slack, then the ailerons become mushy, unresponsive. Losing controls. Rojohn fights the yoke. Leak, I need trim, full nose up trim. Leak spins the trim wheel. The elevator trim tabs small surfaces on the tail that can adjust pitch without control. Column input respond. The nose rises slightly. Not much, barely noticeable, but barely is better than nothing. They've descended to 4,000 feet. The ocean surface is visible, gray, cold, lethal. Ditching in the North Sea means death by hypothermia in minutes. Even if you survive the impact, the water will kill you. Then Harris spots it through the smoke and chaos. Land dead ahead. 10 miles. Rojohn squints through the shattered windscreen. They're a thin brown line against the gray sea. An island. German-occupied but solid ground. "Can we make it?" Leak asks. Rojohn does the math in his head. Rate of descent, distance to shore, remaining altitude. It's going to be close. Impossibly close. "We're going to try." He turns to the intercom. "All crew prepare to bail out over land. That's an order. Get ready to jump." Behind them, crew members scramble for parachutes. Some were thrown across the cabin during impact. Some are tangled in debris. The tail gunner has to cut his free with a knife, but Woodall stays at the ball turret, still working the pry bar, still trying to free Russo. "Woodall, that's an order. Get your chute." Not leaving him. "You can't save him if you're dead. Move." Woodall makes one more attempt, throws his full weight against the pry bar. The metal groans, then the pry bar snaps in half. He falls backward, clutching the broken tool. The hatch hasn't moved. In the turret, Russo understands. He's been calculating the same math Rojohn has. The aircraft is on fire. Ammunition is exploding. They're barely staying airborne, and his turret is sealed. "Woodall." His voice is calm now, eerily calm. "Go. Get out. I'll be fine." Both men know it's a lie, but it's a necessary lie, the kind that lets someone else survive. "Russo." "That's an order, Sergeant. Go." Woodall hesitates one more second. Then he scrambles toward the waste hatch where other crew members are preparing to bail. In the cockpit engine, 3 coughs, black smoke, and seizes. The propeller windmills uselessly creating drag. Rojohn compensates with rudder, but the rudder cables are severed. He tries adjusting power on the remaining engines. It barely helps. 2 engines now. 2 engines trying to keep 60,000 pounds of broken metal and dying men airborne. The coastline gets closer. 5 miles, 4 miles, but they're still descending, still losing altitude, still on fire. Leak watches the altimeter spin downward. "We're not going to make the island." "We'll make the island." "Glenn, the math." "Screw the math." Rojohn's voice is raw. "We're making that island because if we don't, everyone in the water dies." No discussion. 3 miles, 2,000 feet altitude. The fire reaches the port wing fuel tank. Flames wrap around the metal, heating it, weakening it. Any second now, it will explode. And when it does, the choice between attempting the impossible and accepting the inevitable will be made for them in fire and physics and the brutal mathematics of war. Rojohn has flown through flak that turned the sky black, through fighter attacks that killed half his formation, through engine fires and hydraulic failures and 100 emergencies that should have killed him. None of it prepared him for this. The yoke responds like he's steering a building through mud. Every input delayed. Every correction requiring 3 times the force. His shoulders burn. His hands cramp. But he doesn't let go. Leak trim adjustment. Now. Leak spins the trim wheel, feeling for the sweet spot where the aircraft stops trying to kill them. The nose rises a fraction. Not control. Barely influence. But that fraction means they're not diving anymore. Rojohn tests what's left. Ailerons sluggish but functional. Elevator responding through trim only. Rudder completely dead, cables severed. No rudder means no way to counter yaw. No way to coordinate turns. He'll have to fly it with throttles alone. Engine 1 increased to 2,200 RPM. Engine 2 hold at 1,900. Leak adjusts throttles with surgical precision. The power imbalance creates a turning moment. The nose swings right, slowly grinding through air like a ship changing course. It's working. They're actually turning, but every adjustment costs altitude. Every correction bleeds energy. Altitude 3,000 feet. Distance to island 2 miles. Rate of descent 600 feet per minute. The math is brutal. They'll reach the island with maybe 500 feet to spare. Maybe. If nothing else fails, too many ifs. The fuselage groans, metal breaking apart. The collision point is flexing with each wind gust, rivets popping in chains. "We're losing structural integrity," Harris shouts. "I know everyone, get ready to bail." But Russo can't bail. Russo is trapped in a sphere compressing around him like a vice. His breathing becomes shallow, not from panic, from physics. There's less room for his lungs to expand. Woodall is at the waist hatch now, parachute strapped on static line clipped. But he's not jumping. He's staring back at the ball turret at the man inside who can't get out. "I can't leave him," Woodall says. "You have to," the radio operator shouts. But neither jumps yet. They're waiting for Rojohn to perform a miracle. In the cockpit, Rojohn makes continuous micro-adjustments. Power changes every 5 seconds. Trim corrections every 10. He's playing an instrument no one has ever played before, making music from catastrophe. "Glenn," Leake's voice is quiet. "The port wing tank. It's going to blow." Rojohn sees it. Flames wrapping around the fuel tank, metal glowing orange. 300 gallons of high-octane fuel about to detonate. "How long?" "Minutes, maybe less." They don't have minutes. They have seconds. Rojohn adjusts power again. Engine 1 screaming at maximum. Engine 2 at idle. The asymmetric thrust forces the nose right toward the island, filling the windscreen. 1 mile, 2,000 feet. The aircraft isn't flying anymore. It's falling in a controlled manner. A 60,000-pound glider with the aerodynamics of a brick. But it's falling toward land, not water. "Leak, when I give the word, cut all power." "Cut power, we'll drop like a stone." "We're going to drop anyway. I want to choose when." One chance at this. One approach. No go-around. They put it on the ground or they die trying. Half a mile, 1,500 feet. Individual buildings now. German soldiers running. Anti-aircraft guns tracking their descent. The runway impossibly small for what he's attempting. "Crew bail out, all crew bail out now." Harris jumps. The bombardier follows. Then the engineer. Parachutes blossom behind the dying aircraft. Woodall still hesitates, still looking back at Russo. "Woodall, jump." The radio operator grabs Woodall and pulls him toward the hatch. He's gone. You can't help him move. They jump together, tumbling into winter air parachutes deploying, carrying them away from disaster. In the ball turret, Russo watches them go. He's alone now except for the 2 pilots who refuse to leave. The turret has compressed to where he can't move his arms, can barely breathe. But he can see through the plexiglass ocean below, giving way to beach, sand, solid ground. They made it to land. That means something. That means the others have a chance. He stops fighting, stops trying to escape, just breathes shallow, painful, and waits. In the cockpit, Rojohn lines up with the island. Not the runway, they're too low, too slow, too broken. But there's open ground. Fields, buildings, solid earth, quarter mile, 1,000 feet. The port wing fuel tank ruptures. Fire erupts, flames streaming backward, but it doesn't explode, not yet. The fuel is burning as it leaks. A gift. The last gift physics will give them. "Leak on my mark, cut all power." "Ready." 500 feet. German soldiers' faces visible now. Some diving for cover. Some frozen, unable to process what they're witnessing. 300 feet. Now cut power. Leak pulls all throttles to idle. The engine noise drops. The aircraft drops with it, nose pitching down. Rojohn pulls back on the yoke with both hands. Leak adds his strength. Together, they haul the control column into their chests, fighting to raise the nose, to flatten the descent, to turn a crash into a landing. 200 feet. Ground rushing up. 100 feet. Buildings passing beneath them. 50 feet. Rocks grasp terror in a German soldier's eyes as he throws himself flat. And then gravity and earth and 60,000 pounds of broken metal meet in a collision that will either save them or end them, and there's no time left to wonder which. "Bail out!" Rojohn's voice crackled through the intercom. "All crew prepare to bail out." Woodall hesitated at the ball turret. "Russo's still stuck. Get him out or leave him bail out now." Harris moved toward the nose hatch. The bombardier followed. Wind screamed through the broken fuselage. Below them, the North Sea gave way to Wangerooge's beach. German ground, survivable ground. Rojohn felt the controls getting heavier. The trim was shifting as fire changed weight distribution. "Leak, go." Command voice. No discussion. The co-pilot stared at him. "What?" "Bail out. I'll hold it steady." "Not a chance." "That's an order, Lieutenant." "Then court-martial me when we land." Leake's hands stayed locked on the throttles. "You can't hold this alone." It violated every protocol. The co-pilot was supposed to bail when ordered, but protocol assumed the aircraft was flyable by one man. This aircraft required 4 hands, 2 sets of eyes coordination measured in fractions of seconds. One man couldn't do it. One man would lose control immediately, killing anyone still trying to bail. Leake understood that. Rojohn understood that. Leake stayed. A forbidden refusal. An act of brotherhood that defines military service more than any regulation. Behind them, Woodall made one final attempt. He wedged a pry bar into the turret hatch. The metal bent but didn't break. Russo's voice came through quieter, now resigned. "Go! Get out! That's an order from me, too." "We're not leaving you." "You are. Tell my mother. Tell her I wasn't scared." A lie. A kind lie. Woodall hesitated the longest second of his life. Stay and die with Russo or jump and live with leaving him. He jumped. Harris followed. Then the bombardier, radio operator, engineer. Parachutes blossomed against gray winter sky. In the ball turret, Russo watched them fall away. He was alone now except for the 2 pilots above. The turret groaned, metal compressed. The space around him shrank. He prayed. Not for rescue, impossible now. He prayed for the pilots to survive, for the crew who jumped, for his mother in Brooklyn who would receive a telegram. He prayed it wouldn't hurt too much when the end came. In the cockpit, Rojohn and Leake fought physics. Fire reached the port wing fuel tanks. Flames wrapped around engine 3. The propeller disintegrated, blades tearing loose, tumbling away. 3 engines. Then 2 as engine 4 seized. Altitude 6,000 feet. Airspeed 135 knots and dropping. Rate of descent 800 feet per minute and accelerating. Wangerooge's runway appeared through winter haze. German anti-aircraft guns tracked their approach. Gunners watched through binoculars, 2 bombers locked together, trailing fire, descending in something resembling controlled flight. The German battery captain lowered his binoculars. His hand hovered over the fire command. "Hauptmann!" His gunner waited. The captain watched the burning mass approach. "Hold your fire!" His men stared in disbelief. "Those men are already dead. Let them die on the ground." But Rojohn and Leake were not dead. Not yet. They muscled the fused aircraft toward the island. No landing gear hydraulics gone, no flaps controls severed, just momentum and 2 pilots who refused to quit. What followed would be remembered as one of the most impossible feats of airmanship in aerial warfare history. 3,000 feet. The island filled the windscreen. Rojohn could see German soldiers running from buildings pointing skyward at the 8-engined monstrosity. 2,000 feet. The port wing fully engulfed. Fire streamed backward, wrapping around the tail. Heat warped aluminum skin. Structural members began failing. "We're not going to make the runway," Leake said. "We'll make the island. That's enough." 1,000 feet. Rojohn cut power to the remaining engines. The sudden silence was worse than noise. Now they heard everything, fire consuming both aircraft, metal groaning as structures collapsed, wind shrieking through every hole. 500 feet. They cleared the beach. German gunners dove for cover. 200 feet. Rojohn pulled back with both hands. Leake added his strength. Together they forced the nose up, bleeding airspeed, flattening the descent angle from fatal to merely catastrophic. Impact. 9 lives disintegrated instantly. The fused bomber exploded on contact, a rolling fireball that vaporized the tail section. The blast threw the little skipper forward and down. The remaining B-17 bellied into frozen ground at 90 knots. No landing gear, no flaps, just aluminum on Earth. The aircraft hit hard, a sound like a building collapsing. The belly split open, sparks showered as metal scraped across frozen dirt. The bomber skipped once actually airborne again, then slammed back down. The impact shattered the ball turret. Russo's prison disintegrated. His death was instant, the only mercy physics offered. The little skipper kept sliding, plowed through a wooden barn, demolished a stone building, sheared off both wings. The fuselage, now just a tube of aluminum and fire, continued another 100 feet before friction won. Silence. Brief. Impossible. Then secondary explosions, ammunition cooking off, fuel igniting, flames spreading through wreckage. Inside the crushed cockpit, Rojohn tasted blood. The instrument panel had compressed toward him, metal bending, glass shattering. Beside him, Leek was unconscious, blood running from his forehead. Leek. Rojohn grabbed his shoulder, shook him. Leek, we have to move fire. Leek's eyes opened, unfocused. We down. We're down. We have to get out. Now. They released harnesses with fumbling hands. Fire was spreading. The rear exit was blocked. Forward was the only option. Rojohn kicked at the broken windscreen until it gave way. Cold air rushed in clean air that didn't smell like burning aluminum and death. They tumbled out onto frozen ground. German soldiers surrounded the wreckage, rifles raised, shouting, but they held fire. They stared at the burning hulk, at the impossible crash site, at two men crawling from wreckage that should have killed them instantly. Rojohn stood, his legs barely held. He looked back at the little skipper, unrecognizable. 200 feet of scattered debris, smoke rising in black columns, fire spreading through twisted metal. "Russo," he said. Leek shook his head. They had saved who they could. They had done the impossible. They had flown 2 fused bombers through fire and flak and brought them down on land instead of sea. But they hadn't saved everyone, and that would haunt them longer than the medals or headlines or the impossible feat itself. German soldiers pulled them from the fire. Wehrmacht medics arrived, efficient, professional. They treated burns, bandaged wounds, gave water. The war continued, but in this moment, professional respect eclipsed enemy status. 6 men from the little skipper survived, Rojohn and Leek from the cockpit. 4 who bailed over the island, all wounded, all alive. 4 from 9 lives survived. They had bailed into the North Sea where German rescue boats retrieved them. Hypothermia, injuries, but alive. Staff Sergeant Joe Russo died in the ball turret. Impact crushed the compressed sphere completely. German soldiers recovered him hours later. They buried him with military honors, enemy respecting enemy. 7 men from 9 lives died in the initial attack or the explosion on impact. Their bodies were never fully recovered from the inferno. 10 survivors, 17 dead. The mathematics of air war calculated in flesh and fire. The German commander, a Luftwaffe captain who had flown Stukas over Poland and France, stood before the wreckage as fire crews worked to control the blaze. "How did they do it?" his adjutant asked. The captain shook his head. "They shouldn't have." Behind them, Rojohn sat on frozen ground, head in hands. Leek beside him, silent. No words for what they had just done or failed to do. A German medic offered Rojohn a cigarette. He took it. His hands shook too badly to light it, so the medic lit it for him. "Your crew?" the medic asked in broken English. Rojohn stared at the burning wreckage. "Some made it." "The ball turret?" Rojohn didn't answer. The medic nodded, understanding what silence meant. By evening, German engineers arrived to examine the crash site. They documented the wreckage, photographed the impact pattern, collected pieces. The debris field told a story that would be analyzed for decades. 2 B-17s had locked together at 22,000 feet. They had flown for 16 minutes as a single fused mass. They had descended in controlled flight through flak and turbulence. They had executed a controlled emergency landing that should have killed everyone, and 10 men had walked away. The German engineer's conclusion was inescapable. What happened over Wangerooge was aerodynamically impossible. The fact that it occurred anyway suggested human will could occasionally override physical law. But miracles never save everyone. Second Lieutenant Glenn Rojohn spent the war's remainder in Stalag Luft, the Fern at Barth. Liberated by Soviet forces in May 1945, he returned home 3 months later. The Army Air Forces awarded him the Distinguished Flying Cross. The citation read, for extraordinary achievement while serving as pilot of a B-17 aircraft on a bombing mission over Germany. When his aircraft collided with another B-17, Lieutenant Rojohn displayed exceptional airmanship in maintaining control of both aircraft and executing a controlled emergency landing that saved the lives of multiple crew members. The citation didn't mention 16 minutes with both hands on the yoke, didn't mention the fire the trapped gunner or the co-pilot who refused orders. Citations never captured everything. Second Lieutenant William Leake received the same award. He returned to civilian life, became an engineer, rarely spoke about December 31st, 1944. When asked, he'd say, "We did what anyone would do." But they hadn't. Most pilots would have bailed. Most co-pilots would have followed orders. Most men would have chosen the certainty of a parachute over flying an unflyable aircraft. Rojohn and Leake chose otherwise. The event entered bomber folklore as the Piggyback Flight. Training instructors referenced it in cockpit resource management courses, the importance of crew coordination under extreme stress. Aviation engineers studied crash site photographs for years, analyzing how two aircraft could maintain controlled flight while fused together. The B-17 became legendary for absorbing catastrophic damage. Bombers returned with tail sections, missing wings, shredded engines gone. But Wangerooge added a new Chapter 1 that seemed impossible even for the plane that could not be destroyed. In 2003, Rojohn's daughter, Cindy Rojohn, began researching her father's war service. He had died years earlier, taking most of the story with him. She tracked down crew members, located German archives, found eyewitness accounts. She compiled everything into a book, preserving a story that had almost vanished. The crash site was bulldozed in 1945. The aluminum salvaged. By the 1960s, nothing marked where two B-17s had ended their impossible flight. But the men who'd been there, American and German, carried the memory. In 1987, a German veteran wrote to a military magazine, "In 5 years of war, I saw courage many times, but I never saw anything like what those two American pilots did. They earned something greater than victory. They earned respect." The letter was unsigned. The veteran wanted the story recorded while anyone still lived who remembered, because some stories matter more than the individuals who lived them. On the last day of 1944, two pilots turned wreckage into a lifeboat and refused to abandon the men who trusted them. They flew an aircraft physics said could not fly. They landed a disaster that should have killed them all. They did not save everyone. War never permits that mercy. But in the frozen sky over the North Sea, Glenn Rojohn and William Leake proved something no manual had codified. That skill and brotherhood can sometimes bend the unbendable, that the will to save one another can outweigh gravity and fire and the brutal mathematics of aerial combat. German soldiers watched in stunned silence as men crawled from an inferno that should have consumed them. And in that silence, the silence following impossible survival, something transcended the war itself. A recognition that survival born from a refusal to quit carries weight that victory and defeat cannot measure. The wreckage burned through that New Year's Eve night. Morning came cold and clear. Footprints marked the frozen ground where survivors had walked away. And somewhere in those footprints, in that impossible debris field, in the space between what should have happened and what did happen, lived a truth that defines us, that even amid fire and metal and the worst humans can inflict upon each other the choice to not let go, to grip the yoke and fight for one more second, echoes deeper than the wars that demand it. Deeper than victory. Deeper than defeat. Deeper than the sky itself. If this story moved, you honor the memory of those who fought by sharing their legacy so that acts of courage and sacrifice are never forgotten.